Greetings, MechWarriors. This is Blackhawk SC, and welcome to part 2 of my Weapon Synergies guide. In part 1, I talked about the rationale behind the weapon synergies and inner sphere long to mid-range combinations. I'll post a link to the playlist below so you can check it out if you missed any of the other parts of this series. In this part, I'll be talking about the IS mid-range to short-range combinations. And we'll talk about one that we don't see too often, but I've been using quite a bit on my builds. The triple large pulse laser and single PPC at the 350 to 450 meter range. Now, this is a pretty specific setup, unlike other weapon pairings that I'll be talking about in the series, because it's exactly 3 LPLs and 1 PPC. It's also quite specific in the types of mech that this build should be put on. So let's use the Battlemaster Hellslinger as an example. So first of all, this build should be used on mechs that are good ridge or corner peekers. So we're looking for assaults on heavy mechs with 4 or more high-mounted energy hardpoints, such as pretty much all the Battlemasters, or asymmetric energy hardpoints located all on one side of the mech, such as the Zeus 9S or any of the Black Knights. Let's actually consider the main competitor to this build, primarily the quad large pulse laser. Now I would say the large pulse laser is the best inner sphere weapon for the 350 to 450 meter range, which in my opinion actually translates to making it the best overall inner sphere weapon in the solo queue. In the solo queue, the majority of the match will happen around that range, especially since the clan ER medium laser range and Gauss nerfs that happened in early December 2015. However, the LPL begins to ghost heat at 3. Therefore, if you're engaging targets at that range, at the minimum you would have to stagger the 4 LPLs in 2 groups of 2 or 3 and 1. This is unless you want a massive 8.5 point heat spike. If you do stagger the LPLs, then you artificially eliminate the main benefit of LPLs versus, say, the standard large laser, which is the LPL's low duration and near pinpoint damage. This is exactly what ghost heat is designed to do. It penalizes players for bringing a single big alpha strike. However, when we put on the PPC in place of the 4th LPL, the PPC does not link with the LPL in the heat penalty table, and during an alpha strike, our penalty is only 3 additional heat versus the staggered LPLs, and 1 point less damage. But the biggest benefit of this combination is that we save half a second of phase time, likely more. This means you can spread damage the moment your LPLs finish their burn. This may not seem like much for newer players, but versus a clan laser boat, for example, that could mean 30 points of damage that you're able to spread over your non-important components, such as your arms. Currently, the PPC has a somewhat slow velocity, but at the 350 to 400 meter range, it's fairly accurate against larger targets that you're trading with. So let's take a look at how you would play this. Here we're taking advantage of the Battlemaster's high energy hardpoints to do a ridge peek. As with any peek, you need to shield yourself after firing your weapons. Let's compare that with the quad LPLs. So it should be pretty apparent with the quad LPLs, you're giving a lot more phase time to the enemy before you can shield yourself. And that's the main benefit of the 3 LPL PPC combination. Let's also compare it to alpha striking all 4 LPLs at the same time. So you'll notice our heat spikes to 50%, and when we did the alpha strike with the PPC, it actually only went up to 43 or 44. So that 7% of additional heat can be significant, especially on hotter maps when the heat is more difficult to dissipate. The modules you'll want to take are the LPL range and the PPC cooldown modules. The LPL range module allows you to engage at slightly longer ranges. The PPC cooldown module is to get the two weapons to sync better, since the PPC has a 3/4 of a second longer cooldown time than the LPL. The top quirks that you're looking for are energy range and the PPC velocity quirks. Energy heat gen is also nice to have when the match gets into a brawl. This setup, fortunately, isn't so dependent on quirks, since the LPL is already a very strong weapon, and the quirk simply makes it a little bit better. For example, I currently run this on the Stalker 3F, which has an almost insignificant set of quirks. A few additional notes about the setup. First, you can engage as far as 100 meters past your LPL optimal range. But be aware that the PPC will start losing its accuracy against smaller or faster mechs beyond 500 meters, unless it has a PPC velocity quirk. Now if we look at the quirk list on this Hellslinger, this, for example, has the PPC velocity quirk that we're looking for. Second, when the battle gets into a brawl, you want to stick with your LPLs because they're far more heat efficient than the PPC, and in the brawl you're going to be limited by heat anyways. Compared with the quad LPLs, you pretty much lose nothing in the brawl either, because typically you're firing 1 or 2 LPLs at a time to avoid overheating. Next on the list, at 300 to 400 meters, is the large pulse laser and medium laser combination. Usually this is 2 to 3 LPLs and 2 to 4 medium lasers. As I mentioned earlier, I think the LPL is the strongest overall weapon in the IS arsenal for the solo queue. However, IS mechs will run into one of two problems when they start building LPLs. First, ghost heat hits at 3, which is what the triple LPL PPC combination helps with. For some mechs though, the hardpoint locations are not great for corner ridge peeking, and they must expose most of their mech to get that alpha strike out. For those mechs such as the awesome 9M shown here, if they have 5 or more energy hardpoints, there's another option to get around ghost heat. And that is to use several medium lasers as a supplement to the LPLs. The second problem is tonnage, especially on medium mechs. A medium mech like the Cicada 3F can run 2 LPLs, but any more than that will force the pilot to take relatively small engines. And slow speeds are extremely dangerous to light and medium mechs, so you shouldn't do that. On my Cicada 3F, I put in 2 medium lasers to fill in as almost a third LPL, but at the cost of only 2 tons. The LPL and medium combination is a very versatile combination, and for this reason, this is probably one of the most cookie-cutter IS weapon combinations in the game right now. Many meta builds will use this. It's usable from 40-tonner mediums all the way up to assaults. Since the mediums are only one slot, they can also fit into head and CT energy hardpoints right here. The thought process of building the LPL medium combination mechs pretty much goes something like this. Number 1, how many LPLs can I put into this mech before I either run out of tonnage to keep the engine size that I want, or I run into ghost heat? Number 2, do I have additional energy hardpoints? If yes, then add 2 to 4 medium lasers. It's pretty much as simple as that, and also very effective. So you may be asking, why not 5 or 6 medium lasers? Well, the answer is that the medium laser has inferior range, duration, and heat efficiency compared with the LPL. By the time you're spending 5 or 6 tons on mediums, you're probably better off finding 2 extra tons somewhere and getting another LPL. So let's talk about what makes this work. First, they're both lasers, so they don't require different firing mechanics. That is, at the 300 to 400 meter range, you don't need to lead one weapon and not lead another, like with ballistics and lasers or missiles and lasers. So you're able to reliably hit the same exact component that you're aiming for. Second, their ranges are similar. With the medium laser range module, before considering any quirks, you're able to do good damage out to about 350 meters, which is the LPL optimal range without quirks and its range module. Third, the durations are also quite similar with each other, with the mediums having just a 1/4 of a second longer burn time. Their cooldowns also match very well. The LPLs have a 1/4 second longer cooldown, which is offset by the 1/4 second shorter burn. Since mostly we're putting it on mechs that aren't built for corner or ridge peeking, the playstyle is a bit more of a flanker than a peeker. So you're trying to get angles on the enemy blob that they're not looking at. Get off an alpha strike, cool down, and reposition if they start paying attention to your direction. So since this is a more dynamic playstyle, with positioning being an important component of the overall formula, I've recorded a gameplay segment of how this can be done. In my example, I used the Zeus 9S, which can be built as a corner peaker, but I've built it using the LPL-ML combination in this case. So here we are on HPG network.
New target acquired.
And so our goal is trying to get these flanking maneuvers on the enemy, and you can see that from the red Doritos, they're mostly pointing towards the Echo 4 area. So we're going to try to go around to the sides or behind them in this case.
Target destroyed. New target acquired.
So we're waiting till like the Highlander is engaging here, and then getting some shots off.
Acquired.
Again, you want to put some barriers in between you and the main force. For example, like a lot of them are in Echo 4 right now, so we're putting those pillars between ourselves and the main force over there. You see all those red Doritos there.
New target acquired.
Again, trying to make sure we flank them and not take them head on. See, they're looking over at the Delta 4, Charlie 4, that direction. And so we're still poking from like this Echo 5 direction, so we're kind of off to the side and trying to not draw attention. And since they saw us and they saw me, so I'm gonna try to reposition myself and not poke from the same position twice.
Acquired.
Yeah. So they're still looking at the Delta 4 area, and I see that, and I can go in for another Alpha Strike here. Going for another Alpha Strike and start getting the attention of the Dire Wolf. So back off. So shield and back off. You see how he's hitting my right arm, which has no weapons in there.
Acquired.
And come here and finish off the Dire.
Critical damage.
Again, just
Target
exposing that right side. So as you can see, while we're getting close to the brawl range with this setup, we're not quite brawling just yet. The LPLs and the medium lasers are not heat efficient enough to go head on 1v1 against true brawlers. So keep finding angles to get in big alphas from the sides and continue to assess the situation and see if you need to reposition. Also try to keep under cover until you get into that 300-400 meter range. The quirks you're looking for with this in the setup are primarily energy heatgen and energy range in that order. So here we can take a look at the awesome 9M quirks, and we do have this energy heatgen quirk. The primary modules you want to take are the LPL range and the medium laser range modules. Now for the final part of this video, we're going to dive into the short range combinations. And we'll start off with the medium laser and medium pulse laser combination at 200 to 300 meters. This is actually a variation of the LPL-ML weapon combination that we just talked about, except it's used at a shorter range. The reason why they work together is also pretty much the same. The duration, the range, and the cooldown values are all fairly close to each other. Frankly though, there are only a limited number of chassis that this combination will work on, and I'll explain why. First, if you recall, the primary reason why we use weapon combinations instead of simply bolting weapons is to avoid ghost heat. The ML and the MPL both hit their limit at 6, so we're looking for mechs that have 7 or more energy hardpoints. Second, most light mechs don't have the tonnage to carry 6 mediums and an MPL and maintain the speed that it needs. And when we get to the heavier mechs, they have the tonnage to carry LPLs, which have better range and better heat efficiency. So we're essentially limited to mediums and smaller heavies that have 7 or more energy hardpoints. Notable examples are the Hunchback 4P, the Blackjack 1X, and the Thunderbolt 5SS. So for the Hunchback 4P, we can see that it has 6 medium lasers and 2 medium pulse lasers. For the Thunderbolt, we have the tonnage and quirks for 6 MPLs and a medium. The playstyle, again, is that of a flanker. So we're going to show another gameplay video which demonstrates the importance of positioning. So we started off the match by just simply grouping up with our team. So here we see a flank kind of going across C2D2. And I don't really want to follow that flank right now because they're moving across open terrain, and I don't really have the range to protect myself over that open terrain.
New target acquired.
So we're looking for little poke opportunities to the side of the enemy direction. They're looking at B3 right now. So we're looking at that right side over here. See if we can get any pokes in.
Target acquired.
So you can see that our team is kind of breaking off, and a lot of them are going over to the C2D2 area. I don't know why they're abandoning C3 right now, but that's what's happening. And if the enemy team pushes down over that ramp over at C3, then we're all going to be dead over there. So we're repositioning over to Delta 2, Delta 3.
Target acquired.
That's where the majority of our team is.
Acquired.
And looks like our team's getting out of that C3 area as well, the rest of the team. Again, I don't want to expose myself over that open distance, so I'm going to drop a strike over there. That's all I can do, basically. I really can't engage at that 400-meter range. I'm going to sit back and see what happens and stay behind cover. Behind these storage containers here. Now I see a flank going to Delta 3, and I would like to follow, but again, I have to go across some open terrain. See if there's a mech covering that firing lane to Delta 1, Delta 2, Delta 1, Delta 2. So it's not really safe for me to actually push across that lane right there, out in the open.
New target acquired. New target acquired.
So again, just have patience and sit back and see how you can do. So here we have a blip in Charlie 2. Looks like there is some mech that we need to pay attention to coming on our back.
New target acquired.
Only one behind us.
Looks like multiple contacts. Yeah, multiple contacts. There's a flank coming up behind Charlie 2. So I'm actually flanking them. They're pushing at that far edge. And you can see here we're trying not to draw attention. We're using that terrain to isolate ourselves from the incoming push at Charlie 2. And so we can isolate these two mechs over here, the Timberwolf and the Arctic Cheetah.
Heat level critical. New target acquired.
Alright, now our team has realized the push, the flank fully, and now are engaging the flankers.
Acquired. Heat level critical. New target acquired.
Again, you really want to watch your heat. You don't want to shut down at inopportune times. So
New target acquired.
and when you're getting hot, just stick with the medium pulse lasers. This guy got in front of me there.
Heat level critical. New target acquired. Target destroyed.
Again, you're there to, you don't really want to be the first guy to poke against a lot of mechs because, your Hunchback's not a super tough mech, so you gotta be careful.
New target
You're there to provide these alpha strikes
target destroyed.
that hopefully tear off components and finish off people.
Critical.
Again, running hot, sticking with the medium pulse lasers. More medium pulse.
Target destroyed. New target acquired. Heat level critical. New target acquired.
We have a pretty comfortable lead here, so let's finish off these other mechs.
Destroyed.
Again, positioning very important. Keep patient, stay under cover. Don't engage until you get into your optimal range. Flank, don't be like the center of attention, and that's how you play this. That's how you play this mech. Watching your heat is vital to playing this type of build. First, you're in a smaller mech, so you're fairly fragile and shutting down often means death. Second, you're close up, so when you shut down, everyone can see it, which also leads to death. But if you play this correctly, it can be extremely powerful, since it's a 40 plus damage coming from an angle that the enemy is not expecting. And enemy mechs will have a harder time reacting and returning fire, since as a faster mech you can duck back under cover or reposition more quickly. Since the medium lasers are pretty heat inefficient weapons, the energy heat gen quirk is the most desirable, followed by energy range. For modules, take the MPL and ML range modules. Well, I hope you all enjoyed part 2, and see you later for part 3.